Well, hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Keys to the Shop, where we give you insights, inspiration, and the tools you need to grow as a coffee service professional. My name is Chris DiFirio. I'm your host for the show, and for the last almost 9.5 years now, we've been putting together Keys to the Shop with over 1,000 episodes, all geared to help you really thrive as a coffee shop owner, help your operations, your people, your quality, and just to get plugged in and make sure you're updated with everything. Go ahead and subscribe to the show wherever you're listening to podcasts. Also, always feel free to reach out to me, Chris at keystotheshop.com. You can talk to me about how you think the show can improve. Tell me what you like about the show. We'll do more of that. It's always a work in progress, even going on almost 10 years of doing Keys to the Shop. We are still definitely wanting to hear from you. That's why I put together a survey that you can find in the show notes that you can fill out. It just takes like 5 minutes. So go ahead and do the 2026 Keys to the Shop listener survey. And if you're interested in keyholder coaching groups, which are the mastermind groups that I host and facilitate between 6 to 7 coffee shop owners, they all have experience. It's a curated group. It's a paid membership. It is a great cohort of peers that coach each other. It creates community, which is really important because coffee shop owners often are very isolated in their worlds, and outside perspective, support, accountability, insights is all very important. So check that out in the show notes as well if you're interested in key holder coaching groups, because it's only a couple weeks until we start our new cohort, and there's still time to apply today. Today, we are sponsored by the Barista Series from Pacific. Go to pacificfoodservice.com and check it out. Make sure that you get samples and try it for yourself. It's designed for baristas, formulated to perform on the bar so that it has great texture, it has great taste, it's focused on the coffee. And that's what you want. You want something balanced, flavorful, but not overpowering. The Barista Series is the OG in the space, and it is preferred the world over for a reason. So go ahead and check them out at pacificfoodservice.com and try the Barista Series today. I want to jump right into the content and say, hey, we have been hearing a lot about the best. We're in competition season. As I record this, sadly, I won't be in San Diego for the SCA show. Just not in the cards this year. Too much travel already at the beginning of the year and all that stuff. But I hope everyone has a good time. But it is a time where we are organizing and evaluating different things that we consider the best. There are people who want to be the best coffee professionals in individual categories, whether you're talking about brewing or latte art or barista. There's also the competitions that include coffee shops, which aren't the same as performance-based competitions. This, in particular, the world's top 100 coffee shops competition or list. It's a list. It's not a competition per se, even though there's judging in some fashion. We're not quite sure what fashion, but there is reported to be judging that happens in the midst of creating these lists. But like any list, there is always going to be an exclusion of coffee shops that you think are supposed to be on that list. And then some scrutiny over why that shop was on the list. If you've had personal experience, especially with these cafes, and you know that the experience there was not as good that you would expect it to reach that rank, you start to fill in the blanks, like maybe this is something that's more based on popularity and aesthetics, like the image of the place, the things that we make assumptions about. The space looks a certain way, therefore it must be a certain way. Now, those of us who have been baristas for a long time, we've been working in the machine, we know that lots of really bad operations have very beautiful cafes, lots of really great places that bring in good coffees. They will brew them poorly, or even places that have amazing branding bring in great green coffee, but they don't roast it properly. Competitions or lists like this, rankings, don't and can't take into consideration the things that actually matter in the coffee shop, because in order to judge those things, you need to be a customer of that shop. And so the list and the rankings, while marketed to the greater world to say, here's the ranking of coffee shops, it is warped by the training that we've received in the coffee industry to look at the image and actually really not know how to judge the substance. And so we end up promoting cafes that may be really, really good cafes, but there are also cafes that may have some real problems, and that problems that, there's common problems, but they're more like systemic problems. Maybe there are ways that they are operating their business where they're not even profitable. They're not even treating their staff well. The customers are getting very, poor consistency. And the thing is about a list like this is that it actually claims to judge a lot of things that it can't carry through in judging. And it has to say that in order to create some legitimacy. So what it amounts to is when, let's say, like an inexperienced owner starts a coffee shop, or somebody starts a coffee shop, and they say, well, what is it that baristas do? I'm going to make a job description, and we're just going to hammer out 25 bullet points of what a barista is expected to do every day. I see a lot of this stuff when I do consulting, and we walk through the process of whittling down these job descriptions to only the things that are actually physically possible within the time constraints, energy constraints, space constraints of that role. Otherwise, if left on their own, a lot of people would write a job description that is a list of unrealistic ideals. And when somebody doesn't actually do those things well, we get mad. Sometimes people get a little frustrated and they're like, why aren't you doing these things? But most times we don't even have the presence as the person who wrote the job description to check in on if people are doing that. So the question always has to be asked. If you say something in a job description like, hey, we want you to offer great hospitality and service to our guests and care for the quality of our coffee throughout the shift, that's a general statement, but how do you expect them to do that? There has to be a way. There has to be a standard operating procedure. There has to be a quantifiable number of times that you are expecting people to dial in or check the quality of something. There has to be specifics involved in order for these things to be realistic. And if you walk through each imperative, each call to do a thing in that job description, and you say, well, how will they do that? How long will it take? How often should they be doing it? And then you take another look at it and you say, you know what? There's not enough time in the day or in the shift for them to do all that. And so you whittle it down to what are the most important things that they should be doing in the shift that we know they can do. And where we have ambiguity, we need to create detail. Now, a list and ranking such as the top 100 coffee shops in the world does not share those details. And that's what makes this kind of suspect, because I think we all understand you actually can't judge those things. Categories include ambiance and atmosphere, or these are criteria that people are supposed to have excellence in. Ambience and atmosphere, barista expertise, consistency, quality of food and pastries, innovation, quality of coffee, sustainable practices, community. But those are just words. Those are bullet points. And again, it reads like one of those things that you see in a job description that was made by somebody who doesn't know the job very well, because you couldn't actually judge barista expertise unless you knew and talked to and experienced all the baristas in a coffee shop. You couldn't judge the consistency unless you were there on slow and busy days, unless you were there throughout different shift times, unless you had a methodology by which you judge those things and a frequency that you judge them, then you can start to say, yes, this is how we judge consistency. So the how is what we really want to focus in on here. This is a good teaching lesson. The lack of transparency in something that is asking the world to celebrate it is actually an opportunity for us to see this is how we run our coffee shops. This is how the worst coffee shops are run, not the best. The worst coffee shops are run with ambiguity, lack of transparency, expectations that are listed but not resourced, not detailed. There's no clarity. There's no methodology. And so what we have to ask ourselves is, how do I judge my coffee shop? In what ways can I measure these things? Because on their own, they're all good things. You want to have quality pastries and food. You want to have good ambiance and atmosphere. And you want to have consistency and innovation. Well, innovation in what exactly? I mean, that's really personal to you. You might have stuff that doesn't need innovation and something else needs innovation, but it has to be for you in your community. Lists like this actually, if we let it get its claws into our minds and we believe the hype and the kind of gilded fluff of a thing like this, what it does is it creates less focus on our customers and our community and doing great work for them, but we work for the recognition. And it's especially dangerous because we don't know what we're supposed to work on per se. We just know that we're supposed to be excellent generally in these things. And so we're left to deduce from the winners that they're the image of excellence in those things, although we're not told why. That's why the industry, we had this episode a long time ago about how to remove yourself from dependency on the industry to tell you what to do with your coffee shop, or to let it influence you as a comparison, to say that these rankings are somehow like we'll never be in the top 100 coffee shops. It's not really helping coffee shops. The backbone of the industry is coffee shops that operate with a high degree of integrity and focus on their immediate circle of influence, their people, their community, everything else. And those things, anyone outside that community who tries to judge that experience in concert with a lot of other places, even within the same country, or even almost within the same city, would not be able to objectively do so, because each person's mission and vision, their values, and what they're trying to accomplish is different. So ultimately, what we're left with is a decision. We're left with a decision to make right now in the industry. Because we're so connected, we often fall into the comparison trap. And then somebody says, well, we love to compare ourselves. And we say, what's best, what's not best, and who's the best, and all of these things. And so we need to form competitions and lists. And it was only a matter of time until some group of people decided that this was going to be our version of whatever, like the San Pellegrino top 50 best restaurants, or Michelin, guide, and these kinds of things. You know as well as I do that while many, many of these coffee shops are obviously, even just my assumptions here, I have never been to these places, but they look really good. I've been to some of them and they are good. And I would not hesitate to shake the hand of somebody who won something like this and say, congrats, mostly because I know it's great for marketing. We don't know the reasons why they were chosen per se, because the reasons are just kind of under lock and key at this point. We're not told what this was. Like back in the day, you would get a lot of debrief, and I think you still get debriefed as a barista competitor, like what did you do well, what did you do not well. Even they have access to the rules and regulations as kind of sold out to sponsorships as those tend to be these days. We are still given a lot of clarity and transparency. And so while something like this could have been, I think, full of a lot more integrity and transparency to be actually helpful to the industry, instead of just another fluffy, like not really substantive, but like trust us, these are the best for reasons. the reasons we judge our coffee shops and the criteria we use to judge our coffee shops, you can take the exact same criteria and then apply it to yours, but you have to have very specific reasons and things you're looking for to say, how do I know that I'm consistent? How do I know that I I need to be innovative? You might not need to innovate anything in your cafe, by the way. Innovation is to create something that is needed for a purpose. And if there is no need and you know it because you know your business well enough, then there's no need for innovation. It's just maintenance of excellence at that point. So, but if you do need to, how will you? And how will you know when you've done what you need to do? Customer service. How do you judge that in your coffee shop? Is there a way that you are able to take yourself from back behind the bar and be a customer in your own cafe? What about quality of food and pastries? Do you talk to your customers about these things? This competition and this ranking likely doesn't talk to customers about this. I mean, there's a popular vote, but that, when we talk about followers on Instagram and everything else, half of those people are not even your customers. And the people that experience those brands in the cafe, since this is a coffee shop, there are places that are coffee shop and roastery, people that get their beans delivered and they say, oh, my favorite roaster, who happens to have a coffee shop in this competition, is doing this. And so I'm going to vote yes on this because we want them to win, but I don't have any idea what their coffee shop is actually like. And that's helpful for a lot of brands that just don't have the ability, or they haven't baked into their cafes the ability to even judge their own cafes. So customers, and I've been to many coffee bars where you would expect it because of reputation of roasted coffee or competition level or competition participation and pedigree to be a good cafe experience. But here's the thing. A lot of people just drop the ball because they don't need to have their reputation backed up by the Joe Schmoes that walk into their coffee shop and order pedestrian drinks. They're not ordering signature drinks every day. It's the reputation we build digitally about our brand today that seems to matter more than the actual experience of our brand with our people in the cafe day to day. That's what we at this podcast stand for most of all. It doesn't matter if you win an award, really. What matters is if you can verify that you actually deserve it based on the criteria that you have applied to yourself already through a system of checks on these things. That matters. So when you look at criteria for what the best coffee shops do, we have episodes talking about the best coffee shop, and of course, it's very relative. It depends on where you are, who you're serving. Even hospitality differs country to country, where norms and traditions of how one is addressed, how one is left alone or not left alone, those are different in different cultures. So where you might see a lot of attention and hands-on hospitality somewhere, you might see a little bit less of that, no less intentional, no less born from a spirit of others-focused service. It just takes a different form. So again, this list, ambiance and atmosphere, barista expertise, we have to figure out expertise in what exactly. If you know a lot about coffee, but you're not doing the work well, I mean, hospitality, by the way, it says customer service here, but we don't know what that means. Barista expertise in what exactly? It depends. Consistency, obviously important for all things. Quality of food and pastries, innovation, coffee quality, customer service, sustainable. Community, and that's another thing. It's really difficult to know what that means when you're judging it, but for you, you know what that means. If a ranking claims to judge these things, it really is. It's virtually impossible. These are words used just like word salad. It's randomized. It's like these sound like good things. We actually value these things, but we just don't know how to judge it. And only you can, and your immediate community can judge those things. Community, for example, like we're talking about, if you're participating in, and how would a ranking judge look at this in a coffee shop? Your participation in fundraisers and community service and, being a good reflection of your culture and your neighborhood, different things you do to help employ people from the neighborhood and that kind of thing. I would love to know if there's actually methodologies for these things that I'm missing here, but more than likely, these are areas that are just kind of broad-based assumptions based on the image of the place in very limited interactions. The truth of whether or not these things are happening comes from the people who actually live in and frequent and live with this cafe over time. And so my request here for you is, while you see these things, view this competition or this list more like a list of neat coffee shops in the world. They're cool coffee shops. It's not about the best. The judging criteria is not actually serious. If it were, there would be loud and proud methodologies and details shown. There would be, a lot of that. And it's just, when you see this, and I say this because a part of me worries. I got to tell you, part of me worries because I talk to coffee shop owners all the time, and I can say people are trying to make it work. They're in the work day after day, and they see these things, and sometimes it's inspirational. Other times it's like, well, I'm never going to get there. It's a distraction. It's a distraction. The inspiration, see, when we do a Founder Friday, it's not that, oh, they have that person from that cafe and that should inspire you. But when we ask questions about what they think, do, and say, and how what the journey is like, and what the integral part of their businesses are and their values, those are the useful parts. But you don't know that from something like this. Just as much as I would never suggest that, just because a place is big means it's successful. So these places on the list of world's top 100 best coffee shops, it's a popularity contest. They're cool coffee shops. And because you may have experienced a few of them, you might know that a lot of them are actually really good coffee shops because they're backing up this thing. Whether the ranking can back it up or not, they can. But we need to be about our business in the cafe with who we serve and who we serve with. Partly what's also not really seen in things like this, beyond what we already know can't be judged accurately or fairly or thoroughly or with any acceptable degree of integrity, is the barista's experience of the business. How do they feel about working there? Do we know anything about the turnover rate, the clarity of communication, the support from management, the resourcing? Are they abandoned on the bar after 2 days of onboarding and they just hack through it? And then somebody has this idea that it's a great place because they have this really rare coffee on pour over and they happen to go and get served by the best barista there. And they just don't know that there's this underlying angst in this cafe based on a very dysfunctional organization that is kind of covering it up with a lot of glitz and glam and branding and competition focus and this kind of stuff. It's time we had a movement of integrity of operations. And also the customer's experience of the place too matters a lot. I mean, this is really important. The customers, the staff experience, the stuff on this list, of course, is important, but how it's judged and how it's determined has to be something that is born from within your business first, and that the highest standards would be applied by you, specifically to advance the cause of your cafe there. Running a cafe, hopefully, when people see this type of stuff, they're not thinking, hey, I really hope we win best coffee shop of our country. Now, if you do, say thank you, do a media circuit, put the plaque on your wall. But I got to tell you, it doesn't do anything beyond that if it gives you recognition, but in some ways it's a distraction. So I kind of go back and forth on it. Honestly, like I've been in competitions, I've started competitions. I see how the marketing can be very useful, but there's this trap we fall into where we keep creating coffee bars for our peers, and we focus on the rankings as though it were true, as though it is the pinnacle. And we kind of almost feel bad for questioning it in some ways. I hope that you hear me not as somebody who thinks every coffee shop on this list is illegitimate or whatever. No, there's some questionable entries, compared to what is available, but this is the limit of competitions too. There's no perfect competition out there. Are there major flaws with what's being claimed on criteria? Of course. Of course. That's why this is the top 100 neatest coffee shops or coolest coffee shops, popular coffee shops, more than it is something that is based on serious judging and assessment of what makes a good coffee shop. That is our job, to determine for the people we work for. And that is why coffee shops are sustained. It is why I love coffee shops. And hopefully stuff like this gets better and better. Maybe it will reinforce these things and have more transparency and show itself to be a boon for the industry, because it's promoting things that are beneficial for people locally, not just kind of like a globally ambiguous insider culture coffee shop thing. But we'll see. We'll see. All that to say, we are the ones who have to be specific about the things that we want to measure our coffee shops by. And when we do that, we're going to have the best coffee shop. So that's it for me, everybody. I hope that you have a great day. And as always, I hope that this episode has truly given you keys to the shop.